So you need to create content for marketing, but asking for budget can be a challenge if you can't tie it to revenue. That's why most B2B marketers are stuck defending content as a cost when it should be seen as a revenue engine. And if your content isn't aligned with your sales process, then yeah, it's probably going to get cut rather than expanded. This video will help you tie content marketing to revenue and justify marketing spend. Hey, I'm A. Lee Judge, founder of Content Master, where we help companies around the world grow their brands through content that connects sales, marketing, and results. This video is for B2B marketers and their managers who are tired of being asked to prove the ROI of content and don't want to lose budget because results aren't instant. I'm going to show you how to connect your content directly to revenue and stop relying on vanity metrics like likes and views that don't impress anyone in the boardroom. Because content isn't just awareness fluff, it's a sales tool when done properly. So I'm going to give you 3 ways to tie your content to revenue and move your content marketing from a cost center to a profit center. Number 1, content must support the buyer's journey. The biggest mistake marketers make is creating content for campaigns and not for conversations. Your buyers are already researching. They're doing it on their own time and in their own way, and your job is to have enough content to meet them at every stage of their customer journey. People love to debate the quality versus quantity, but here's the truth. You need both. We get caught up thinking that quality is about production value. And while that's important, it's more about delivering the right value-packed message for where the buyer is in their buying journey. Let me rephrase that. It's the quality of what you're conveying, not just the production value. Now, back to the customer's journey. You want to always know where they are in their buying process, so your content library needs to reflect every stage: awareness content, interest content, consideration content, and content to help them make a decision. Again, you want to have content that's specially designed for each of those stages. Let me break it down for you. For the awareness stage, you're going to have the highest volume of content that you will create. We sometimes refer to this as brand awareness content. And then next, when they become more interested in you, then you have interest content. This is when they're in the mood to say, tell me more. Now, this isn't when you start selling. It's more like when you show and tell about your offering. And remember, this is a sales enablement tool that allows your sales team to use this content to send to prospective customers. And then when they reach the consideration stage, you should have content that's available that points to your unique differences and value over other competitors. This is in the consideration stage. And finally, the decision content is where you get down into the nitty-gritty of your product or service. Tell them how it's done, give them a view of the process, and place them at ease that they're about to make a decision with the right company, yours. So at the top of the funnel, you need volume. That's awareness, education, and trust building. As buyers move down, the content gets more specific: product demos, case studies, customer testimonials, even interactive content like pricing and ROI calculators. Fewer pieces of content, but at higher stakes. That also means you can spend more on content near the bottom of the funnel. All of this content serves as sales enablement. In other words, your sales team should use this content to battle any objections they face from customers. So in essence, what you've done now is you've created content for the sales process. The salespeople and sales team will appreciate that you're creating content to help them sell and close deals, which puts you immediately into the profit center of the business versus just spending money on content marketing. Let me ask you this: if your content disappeared tomorrow, would your sales team notice? Because if not, your content might not be a part of the actual buyer's journey, and that's a problem. All right, number 2, ditch the vanity metrics. Tie content to sales conversations. Social media likes, impressions, and even traffic don't mean anything if they're not tied to deals moving forward. You need to create content that answers real questions, handles objections, and shows up during the actual sales conversations. Sit with sales, listen to their calls. Your content should echo what buyers are already asking, and that content should sound like the language or the words that your buyers are actually using. I say that because often as marketers get into using marketing words and terms, even brand names and industry terms that may or may not resonate with our prospects. So listen to what sales says, listen to the customer, how they talk about your product, and create content that fits their language into the sales process. When you're learning about these sales calls and listening to sales calls, think about every objection you hear from a customer, because every objection should become a piece of content. You can even create it specifically in the middle of a big deal you're working on. Create a video, a web page, or an infographic to answer that one prospect's question or objection. Then make that content public to answer other prospects who are looking for the same answer. Now you've tightly aligned your content creation with the conversations that your sales team is having. And when you show leadership that you're making sales conversations more effective and consistent, you win. By the way, if you really want to go deep into how content fits into the revenue engine, I wrote a book called Cash: Communication, Alignment, Systems, and Honesty. The first chapter, Communication, dives deep into using content to influence and support sales. It's packed with strategies and examples you can use right away. Now on to number 3. Remember that content works long after it's created. Unlike paid ads, content doesn't stop working when the budget runs out. Let me give you an example. A client found our agency. We had a brief call, but then they disappeared. But they began listening to our podcast. And we didn't know that until months later when they called back and they told us, we've been listening to your podcast. We've been convinced that you know what you're doing. We want to work with you. Here's the thing. We had zero engagement that we could track. The numbers in our podcast didn't tell us that they were there. We had no idea they were consuming our content. But by asking them, how did you learn about us or what brought you back? And they said the podcast. So now we know we have an ROI. So that podcast episode we recorded months earlier helped close the deal. That is content ROI, return on investment. Now, to track that kind of ROI, you have to get in the practice of asking prospects how you were brought to their attention, or in our case, brought back to their attention. That means asking them on sales calls, adding a field to your forms, or even having a conversation after the deal closes. You'll find some of this data in your CRM or marketing automation platform, but nothing beats direct ask. You'll find some very interesting connections to your content that helps you defend your ask for budget. By the way, I know by now you're thinking about some ways you've had to defend your content budget. So drop a comment below and tell us, how have you gotten over that hurdle of asking for budget to create more content? I want to hear your story, and I'm sure others can learn from you too. So here's what you need to take away. Your content isn't here to entertain. It's here to help close deals. When your messaging matches your buyer's journey and your content lives inside the sales process, content stops being a cost. It becomes a multiplier to help close deals. It becomes an asset to your company and places the content and you in the profit center rather than the cost center. Hey, I want to keep helping you, so be sure to hit the subscribe button so you'll know when I'm sharing more ways to tie marketing and revenue. And check out this next video to continue improving sales and marketing efforts.